Hey, hello, thanks. Thank you, Les. And if anybody else wants to type, he is welcome or she is welcome. Okay. Yes, guys, I'll tell you honestly that good thing is that I just ran a class. That is the first time I ran the class. And I did the webinar and you all said, well, we want, yes, you showed us where the tutorial is, but we all want to chat and be together. And because there are a few new people here, I will start, okay, and then I discovered that I'm doing the webinar and I wanted to bail out, but no, we have more and more people coming. So that's great. That's great. I think we can start. It's 12:05 on Central Time, and I'll give you all the links that you need. The first link that you need here is this. That is our class run, or that is, you can say, class file right here. I submit our class, our webinar is here. So if you click on that link, you will be able to see that file. Okay. Even if you don't click on the link, I'll go through a little bit of what we have accomplished so far, but anybody can jump anytime, as I said. Okay, I see you're logging in. That's number one. That's number one that you need. So we're doing webinar, which is the result of me teaching Hugging Face, but also learning about it and doing it. And we started this webinar, and here are all the other links. So that's the run. That's the only link that I need to give you. The rest, here it is. If you click on this materials link, then you will get to the folder called For the Students. And that folder is called for students from the first class. I just ran the second one and I'll give you some updates on that. That's where the webinar run is. Okay, you will also get the virtual machines. I started the virtual machines. This time I installed Hugging Face, and so you get the ready to use virtual machines. And let me just lower my window so that I can walk around. So please, no protocol. Everybody is allowed to talk anytime, argue, and interrupt. Now, I will remind, especially for those people who are the first time, that the idea came about because this is deep learning. And lots of slides on deep learning, also lots of labs on deep learning, which if you want to learn, you are welcome. And if you want to run that, this one and that one, that's a Python notebook, then you can easily open a Google Colab and run. But I'm not doing this for you because you see, I made an analogy to a story tale, to a fairy tale, Russian fairy tale, where everybody tried to break an egg and nobody could, and finally came the mouse. So Hugging Face is kind of that mouse that was able to make it very easy. Everybody tried to make it easy, but they really could. And since they really could, then even though my original course that I teach at the company includes deep learning with the previous ways, but Hugging Face obviates all of that. And I will show you what you can do. Now, this is all the slides where I only go to look at some of that today. And the next thing that you will need is, let's go back to webinar. The next thing that you will need is the virtual machines. This is how you get the virtual machines. You click on that link that I will give you, and it is also there, but I will give you the VMs. And what you see here is all of the VMs. Now, why do I do it? That's because I'm asking you, put your name either here or next to the student. And I apologize, I still haven't modified the Terraform script that does it for me. And as a result, you need to find your password. So let me give an example. Let's say I put my name up front and I will be running this machine. The way you use it is this. First, you take the IP. Next, you copy and paste this IP into a new tab. And the third is you click on this. What did I click on? I clicked on access via plain HTTP. That's what I clicked on. So when I click on this, then this window comes up and it wants a password. The password is right here. Since I'm number 0, student 0, then my password is also found right here, the first one. But you will have until I am doing what's right and fulfilling my promise, and that should be output all in one line. But until then, I need to find where is my password and go like this, password. And then I have it. So why did they do that? Most of the material that runs on in the Hugging Face tutorial runs right away in a Google Colab. But if you do this, there's too much magic, in my opinion. Rather than doing this is a virtual machine, pretty powerful virtual machine. Let's look. Okay, it has what? It has 8 CPUs, I think, and enough memory. So that's a nice virtual machine. And here is Python already installed. Okay. And when you want to run anything, that's already there. For example, I have said Python, and I'm now looking at Python. And the next thing is I want to do a lab with you. Now, that is a fine lab, so why don't we jump right in there? This is our run. You remember, this is our run, and I allowed everybody to talk. I gave you guys enough virtual machines. So this is our run. And well, let's give a quick overview. So I said that Hugging Face as a company started, and you can grab your virtual machines meanwhile. So Hugging Face as a company started in 2017, was not a success. They wanted a sexy chat for the teenagers, and somehow it didn't go. But the library that they have developed, the Hugging Face library, was a tremendous success, to the point that today you have 2,000 companies using them, that Google and Facebook and Microsoft and all of them are using Hugging Face, and they are the winner. You can search maybe on trends. So of course, there is another winner, ChatGPT. We'll talk about how is ChatGPT related to this. But lots of things you can do out of the box. And for today, I prepared this lab. Let's see. I need to give you the lab which I prepared for today, but it is January 20 today, and it's a bias, a lab about bias. So let's find that lab here. It's probably up there. Well, let's just go to our labs. I'll show you where that is. Our labs are all found right here. So I click on this link, go to our labs, and here they all are. Now it will be easy to find the bias lab right here. And I'm giving you that link. So first I give you the virtual machine link, and now I'm giving you the first lab link. Well, it's the first for today. So I'm putting it on the chat. Thank you for saying good words, Les. And all of these webinars are recorded. They are all found on one link. And so if you have this webinar link, and by the way, I just chatted to you the lab, but going back to the webinar, that's where all the recordings are. They're all on one link, and there are about 3 or 4 of them by now. You'll find that. But let's go to our lab because we need to start with having some fun and then maybe some discussion. Okay. And all of the new people are also allowed to talk because I don't necessarily see how you raise a hand or how you chat, but I will hear. For some reason it doesn't let me do that. Okay. The bias. Well, that lab is talking about the simple fact that bias, in my personal opinion, is a political thing. Whatever wasn't biased uh, became biased, you know, race, age, sex, mentioning all of that is biased. And my personal opinion that craze will go away, but we absolutely have to deal with that. So that says simply that the bias can be introduced into AI model in many ways. First of all, you can train the model on the current situation in the world, and then it will be biased because it is not what the current politics would like to see, but it will be biased. The other way to make the model biased is to start with the previous model that is already pre-trained and train it some more, but you will carry the bias from the earlier time. And there are many other ways now that I gave you ways of doing this. And now that ChatGPT is making probably more waves by now. Let's look. Let's look at how much noise it's making. Let's go to trends. And let's look at Hugging Face as a company here. So steadily going up. But let's compare that to OpenAI, which is the company behind ChatGPT, right? Well, we see that OpenAI made its great splash right here, and so it's way more popular. But we will compare not only the companies, but the products and what's going on. Okay, that's it, but we are doing the lab. The lab is, we're using a model, and we're using a model that's trained on more or less neutral data. And then we're going to ask it to predict the next word. What if we start this phrase, man works as a whoever, we'll get a certain result and print that. And what if we say this woman works as a whatever, and we'll print that. So I'll explain those lines, especially for the people who are first time here. You need to take the library called transformers, and you need to import it, and specifically out of this library, we're going to use a pipeline. So I'm going to my virtual machine. Here it is. And you go into your virtual machine, and I'm pasting it here. It will not paste it just like that, but instead I'm clicking here on clipboard, and now I'm pasting in there. Now that it is here on the clipboard, I can paste it here. Just do the right click. Don't do Control V, Control C. That doesn't work in all environments, but that works. Now it may take a little time because that's the first time you do it. And also because the machine that I gave you came prepared. It's already with the Transformers library installed, which is part of Hugging Face. So please don't be surprised that it will take that long. If you installed it from scratch, and one of our labs tells you how easy it is to install it from scratch. So if you installed it from scratch, it would make all the initializations on install. but this time it takes a little time. Okay, that just brings in the most workhorse object pipeline. Then I go back to the lab and I'm saying, now let's create the first pipeline. We call it unmasker. Okay, and what we will do is we will tell it, where's my pipeline? There's my pipeline. So I'm saying the name of the pipeline is fill mask. You can figure out what that means, and the pipeline also figures out what it means. That has to be spelled precisely. If you know, it's not Google search, you don't say full mask, it's fill mask. And then you also tell it what model to use. But compared to previous light years of using CNN, convolutional neural networks, and RNN, recurrent neural networks, that's magic. Just a couple words, and I'm ready to tell you what you are thinking, what the next word is. So let me do this. Let me copy that. I'm going to do the task of fill mask, and I'm going to use the broad-based uncased model. And you can Google about all of that and put it here. Okay. Meanwhile, it awoke, and I can paste it here. Clear this, put on this, and hide the clipboard. Actually, if I move this window a little, I won't have to hide it all the time. So paste this, and it downloads the model. The first thing that it does, it has to download the model from Hugging Face. The next time it won't have to do it. Let's try it. Here I am, getting this model right away. It has something to say, but it's okay. And the last thing that I need to do is actually run it. That is my get the result and print it. So this man works as a copy. This man works as a what we will find out as a who. Cleaning and right away pasting here. It says you are pasting a couple lines, be careful. Now it's calculating, it has calculated, and it says the man could be working as a carpenter, lawyer, farmer, businessman, and a doctor. Well, okay, decent. But let's go and let's do the next part of the lab. This woman works as a, we'll see what the woman usually works as. So clear that, paste that, and now paste it in the code line. So the choices are nurse, maid, teacher, waitress, and the prostitute. Well, in the previous class yesterday, I had just one female, and her comment here was not technical. She said, oh, wow, those results. And I asked her, is it technical evaluation of the results? No. So I looked at the statistics. There are not that many prostitutes in the world. That's not the fifth popular profession. That's not how the model learns. It learns from the texts in the world, and there is more interest in prostitutes in the texts around the world than there are prostitutes. Let's put it this way. And in general, it's low paid, well, except for that one, low paid profession, not as high as the man. So why? What is that? And that's called the bias. And this is where AI gets it politically incorrect. But okay, my personal opinion that tomorrow the ruling party changes and suddenly the political correct becomes incorrect. In any case, that exactly illustrates, first of all, that there is a model. And by the way, this is the bird based on case. It's a very popular model trained on, let's say, Wikipedia. So it shouldn't be that biased, but at least it is. That's one that I illustrate. But what I really wanted to illustrate is how easy things are. Those people who have already been in our webinars, they already ran a few tasks out of the box. Which other tasks out of the box can you run? Well, you can run translations, and these are pretty good translations. You can do questions and answers. You can say, that's the context. Based on this context, tell me what's the translation. And if you look at the R language also includes translation, but it doesn't include the model. It really asks Google behind the scene. That is a real model working. So that's what I wanted to illustrate, not so much the bias, but how easy it is to run. Let us pause here and let's see if there are any questions. Does it work for everybody? So I'm answering the question meanwhile. You guys can all speak. We have 14 participants and I am allowing everybody to talk. Okay, you can talk, but you don't want to. You are more interested in what I have to say, not because I have something special to say, because the material is special. So let's go back.
This is Ken.
Go back to our run, and the first thing that we wanted to do is to run a little lab, see how you deal with those virtual machines, how you run a simple example, and well, I can promise you that all of the out-of-the-box models are pretty much the same. It's extremely easy to run. Now, the next step that I want to do is I want to investigate this model. I want to know what am I doing? What is inside the magic box? For that, I need to go back to the machine and over there, look, and that is another AI trying to just jump in. It's Grammarly, but we don't want to do anything with Grammarly right now. So let's look what model did it run. BERT, K-base, uncased. So let's copy that because it will be called exactly that on Hugging Face. Let's paste it into the clipboard. Oh, no, sorry. Clear. Let's copy that. Even though I could remember. Okay, it's here. And now I want to go to Hugging Face. And by the way, I also want to show you Hugging Face. That's it. And that really is my stuff because I train the model. When I train the model, I save it to Hugging Face. So right away, if you have not seen it, you see that Hugging Face acts as a grand repository of publicly available models, 121,000, and yesterday it was 120,000. So 1,000 models was contributed. Now, BERT based on case is right here. What I wanted, no, I didn't paste it, didn't copy it from that other place. Okay. I was in my machine. In my machine, I had to copy that and then put it into a search box on Hugging Face. Now that worked, and it found this one. Let's look at it. First of all, it tells us that it had 25 million downloads, and that is this month. So this month. Now that's an enormous amount of downloads because that's a popular model, and you would think it is interesting to 25,000 people. No, it is increased here every time that you use it. So it's not the amount of downloads. You can say it is downloads, but really People around the world use this model this month 25 million times. So this is what is called the model card. I'm not sure how much attention we paid so far to investigate what's inside the box, what's my magic. But we are maybe repeating ourselves, but I think it's a good idea to look at models. So first of all, you look at the explanation that it was this paper that made the first appearance, and first that was released in this repository. But description, BERT is a transformer model. So to make it very simple, here's BERT. I was exactly the same things I was saying yesterday. BERT means that it is a bidirectional transformer. Transformer means it's a new architecture of neural networks. Yes, there was fully connected neural network, but it just had too much to calculate. So they invented the CNN and convolutional neural network, where they used the trick, they changed the architecture, and now it does pictures. And then it didn't agree with the history. It was only doing static pictures. So they invented the RNN, the recurrent neural network, which uses one trick. It imitates history by feeding the same data to the next layer, skewed, a little bit moved. That's how it imitates history. But that thing didn't know how much to look back and forth. And so it wasn't perfect for text analysis either. So they appeared a new type of neural network called transformer. Now, transformer is more complicated than the previous neural networks, but also much more powerful. Finally, it does things like ChatGPT. And the trick that it uses a layer where it summarizes things so that it doesn't have to wait until all the calculations are done recursively, but instead he had ready summaries. That's a head, and honestly, it's complex. You can read the paper and you can study it. However, you don't have to, because now Hugging Face simply packages the magic for you. It uses another few principles. One of them is self-supervised learning, where it just reads all the text from the world, takes some of the words out, and trains itself to put that back in. Therefore, it is self-learning, and I don't have to provide it with the answers. So there were two types of machine learning, unsupervised and supervised. But now there's a self-supervised there. It is the third one, and most introductions to machine learning don't have that. And finally, it also uses transfer learning. For example, I can send a person to high school, teach him maybe French. So he's a good French speaker. But then I need to make him a French speaking receptionist. So that means he has to answer questions. Therefore, he already knows how to speak French. He doesn't know what to answer to a specific question. You add one more layer, you take the BERT model, you add one more layer, or a few more layers that are fully connected, and they train the same model in specifics of questions and answering, and you got yourself a new very smart model. That's basically how that works. So that explains how BERT works, and we're still investigating what it does. Okay, then here in scraping variation, that all is too deep. We don't want that. It's when you begin to use that in earnest and when you look at different versions. But one thing I want to show here is that hosted inference API. Somebody is so nice that he has put up this model for public consumption. I can ask it to do exactly the same task as we did for our bias lab. Look here. I said, well, the bias lab better look at it here, right? I said that this man works as a mask. So now I can put this same input not into the virtual machine and Python running there. No, I can put it right there in the open and let that model run right here. Let's compute. Now it's thinking and computing because it has not cached. Oh no, it actually had some cached results. Carpenter, lawyer, farmer, businessman, doctor. And what about a woman? Who did she work as? Woman, as a here. Now, let's see if that's cached. Yeah, that was also cached, and that is the same model. Not very surprising that it gave me the same results. Let's try this. That is one of the things, the animal. That is one of the things that they use to confuse the chat GPT. They ask it nonsensical questions. They ask it how, or not how many, but tell me anything about 12 bears that Russians sent to space. And it came back with the names of the bears. Okay, so let's see what happens. Works as a predator hunter, snake pet trainer. I'm not sure if that's perfect, but quality is something that we will discuss later. Right now, I just wanted to show you how it works, how simple it is, how easy, and judging by the number of downloads, it's probably useful. It's probably popular because 25 million people wouldn't be using it last month for nothing. So that's what I wanted to show as a second step. Here we are in the webinar. The first thing that we did, we talked about bias, and then we investigated. Let's put it here. Investigate. Oh no, investigate this model. Not. Oh no. Well, I'll pause here because my next step will be, well, let's try to talk about ChatGPT if it's making so much noise. Okay, it's very popular to talk about. So give me a chance to ask something. Nobody says anything, and we continue. So first of all, the latest news. I just got an email right here. That's the latest, where Sam Altman, who is the CEO of OpenAI, he says people are begging to be disappointed, and they will be. Meaning that since that OpenAI is so popular, as people like to say, they eat the world by having 5 million users, and that's not downloads, that's real different users. So he talks about why you think it won't really live up to expectations. Meanwhile, their valuation is $28 billion. Okay, but what I wanted to show you is not that. I wanted to show a little summary of what this thing is. So that summary is found right here. And it is an article, Medium, titled, What's the Price? So let's put a comparison, our own comparison. Let's create our comparison here. And I'm not sure if yesterday I did any. No, that's talking about the real implementation. How would you do it in the world? I think that is a comparison. Hugging Face, if you compare it to OpenAI, it's fair to compare company against company. Okay, so I put in Hugging Face and OpenAI, even though OpenAI is known by ChatGPT and GPT, which stands for generic trained, I forgot what it stands for. You can look it up, but it is known for those models. So OpenAI produces a few very powerful models. When we say powerful models, we mean billions of different parameters. Let me show you where it all started. If you go to Playground, TensorFlow, that's where in 2015, the world was introduced to neural network. Up until 2015, which is just 8 years ago, there was no libraries that you and I could use. But then Google came up with TensorFlow, and they showed it in a graphical form. So that's where you can play, and you can say, well, I want to distinguish between blue and orange points, and it all worked with just 4 neurons, 4 deciders. So 4 neurons is what this example has, but you can also add. You can add more layers. However, this picture is limited to 6 hidden layers and to 8 neurons in each layer. 6 times 8, 48. Well, today's models are in the billions. That's what, first of all, happens, is that all these models are extremely big. They are very powerful. I'll show an overview of what these models are, how they compare, and even the price. Hugging Face is also a company famous not so much for specific models, but for a library. And that library allows you to use a lot of models. So that's how the relationship between these two stand. You can also store your model. When you train your model, especially when you fine tune, train more, then you can store it back to Hugging Face. Hugging Face is also a repository of models. I didn't show you that, but now I can show it. Well, let's just open it again. That's Hugging Face. Well, that is the data set. So we have 20,000 data sets or about that, and they're all broken in what are they for. So that is something that other repositories like Google and Amazon don't have. They are not for specifically machine learning, and they have done a nice classification job. So what are the data sets for? It tells you here. For example, I want to talk about text retrieval. There are 581 different sets for retrieval models. Models are also classified. Text generation, text, different tasks. And just by the way, because the models are stored, the data sets are stored, but you can't beat the popular attraction of these models out there for consumption, and that's why it's making all the news. However, that's not the only thing that they do. They also give you the APIs. So if you want to include their model, then sometimes the model is there for you and you can include it on Hugging Face. For example, GPT-2 is there on Hugging Face and you can include it, and then you can run it. Run in Python. Right? In practical life, and that will probably have a separate session, in practical life, you publish it as an API, so people don't have to have a virtual machine, don't have to use the code, but ask the API for a specific need. And that is exactly what OpenAI does. On the one hand, it gives you models. On the other hand, it gives you the APIs. And later on, I will show how you can construct your API. Because what is there to do if everything is given? Well, on a higher level than just using an existing API, you can fine-tune your model for a specific task. So if you just want to impress people, that's good enough. APIs will work. And I will show a startup I am building that will just use the, let's say, transcribing, take the spoken word, convert it to text, and we're doing it for the lawyers. So they want to present a recording in court, but they are also required by law to show the transcription. That's first, and that will take you a long way. But then you want to fine tune your model. You can say that's a good model, but it doesn't know about stamp collecting. So I will add the knowledge about stamp collecting, and I will let you ask it questions. That's the second level. That's what you can do. And that shows you that they give you the API. They also give you this in addition. You can also fine tune. Except that it's not as polished, and in other words, that Hugging Face also serves as a framework. You can improve your models there, for example. That is more interested in developing the models and not so much in helping you develop it further. So that's the difference. If we have done this and not one question, and I don't see anything on chat, then we can look at the last link and just see what it gives us. The last link was this, and we already opened that, I think. Yes. And that's a pretty good summary, I think. I will give you that, even though you can have it on the run, but I think I'll put it on the chat here. Okay. So that article explains the things that I mentioned, that these are two different models. They do two different things, ChatGPT and GPT-3. They are prepared as APIs and with the web interface, so you can play with that right out of the box without being part of our webinar. And these are the things that it does. So GPT-3 is more into talking. It's a linguist. ChatGPT has a few versions of that, and it is for chatbots, so practical use and dialogue generations. But there are four engines for the linguist interface, and they're all listed here. Some of them are open, some of them are not, meaning that some of them you can use for free if you have the hardware, and some of them you will have to pay. But right now, I think everything is free. They are making the great news by allowing people to play with that. And one of the latest things I saw was that they're creating havoc in education, meaning that let's say you're a teacher and you want to impress your students or you want to make them work hard. So you say, okay, tomorrow I need an essay on that theme, 5 pages. Well, today you go to the chat GPI and tell it, give me the essay, and it gives you the essay 5 pages. So what was very easy for the teacher to do became very easy for the student as well. In fact, the student have it easier because he can generate 10 pages or 20 pages, but the teacher will have to read it. And what's the point of reading something that the student didn't even write? So there is a bot that works against other bots and detects them. And there is an article in New York Times, something, that talks about that 6,000 teachers have already subscribed to this bot service, and also that they do something about it. That something includes education in what's ethical, what's not ethical, and also if you guys generate all of your homeworks, then what's the point of paying 20,000 or 40,000 for the college education and the carving here? But it will not deter some of the people. So it lists many other advices, but I think it's really a technological problem should be solved with a technological problem if possible, meaning that you should detect that it is a bot written exercise and maybe even penalize for that. But you can look at the article yourself because I think it's making the news as well. Millions of views and thousands of reactions. Okay, that's what this is about. And that things unfold. They just started maybe last week or 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, not that much even. So I'm sure that at our next webinar, we'll have more news and we'll have what to talk about. And I'm sorry that I've been talking all this time. So now I will absolutely shut up. And if you want to say something, now is the time. Now, if you still don't want to say something, that's okay. But what you can do is email. Write an email. I wonder, well, that same email that you got when you signed up for the webinar, you can ask questions right to that email. You can also listen to the previous recordings. I think that's good enough. Okay. Then if there are no questions, and I see a bit more people, so I'm adding permission to talk to all these other people so they can now talk. But if not, okay, you are very welcome, Summer. You need to listen to the previous recordings. Yes, if you have not, it won't hurt. And when you are doing it on your own, don't forget you can go to the tutorial. So I think that's the last thing that I will give you. You don't have to do it. But if you go to Hugging Face, and if you go to where's documentation, right? And documentation will have their own tutorial, of course. So that's what you may need. I showed this at the first webinar and people said, Mark, no, we don't want that. We want you to teach us or we want to be all together. In any case, that's when I'm not teaching. You can use that. I'll put it on the chat here. That's the tutorial. The course, as they call it. The course is work in progress, but the first, I would say 50% of it is wonderful. And that will give you a lot of things to study. So it was fun. I'll wait for you next week. And meanwhile, everybody have a good weekend.
Thank you.